This is the most enamored boy I have ever seen. He was born in a dark place, without any prior memories. As he pursued the light, he received help from a girl. During their brief time together, he experienced warmth like never before. When he learned of the girl's intention to enter the tower, he desperately tried to stop her. But this did not deter her determination to enter the Tower of God. The dim world was left with him alone. Just as he felt utterly desolate, the gate to the tower opened again. An invisible hand also brought him inside the tower. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a strange place. At that moment, a peculiar voice from behind caught his attention. The tower's administrator, Headon, appeared behind him. Bam, eager to find the girl, quickly asked Headon how he could find her. But this is inside the tower. To get the answers you want, you must accept the trials, even at the cost of your life. But Bam didn't care about that. Upon learning that he could pass the trial by destroying the black sphere inside the cage, Bam rushed towards the cage without hesitation. Before Bam could reach the door, Princess Yuri, wearing black stockings, stamped his face. Although Bam understood what the girl was trying to express, the two did not speak the same language. Fortunately, the girl's attendant came over and took out a strange magic sphere. Its purpose was to make everyone's language understandable. Not only that, this sphere was also essential for survival in the tower. But Bam was surprised by this. Such abnormal behavior immediately made the princess realize that Bam was an irregular, because someone who entered the Tower of God through normal means would not be ignorant of even the most basic conditions for survival here. Just as the princess was about to press Bam further, the administrator stepped forward. In his eyes, interfering with other contestants during the test was a capital offense, even if she was a princess. A princess raised in luxury had never endured such treatment. But fortunately, Bam did not let this setback dissuade him from continuing to search for the girl. He walked resolutely towards the gate. At that moment, the princess did not want Bam to waste his life, so the administrator beside her suggested lending him the Black March. It could become different weapons depending on the holder. At that moment, the attendant desperately tried to stop this dangerous idea, but the princess ignored him. She directly summoned the weapon box and lent the unmastered artifact to Bam. Then, the princess no longer tried to stop him from ascending the tower. But when Bam entered the cage, the immense eel felt even more oppressive. Facing the rushing, gaping maw, he could do nothing, and was swallowed without any resistance. The princess was very worried, but being swallowed by the monster was the correct approach to this trial. Escaping the eel's pursuit in such a small cage was as difficult as reaching heaven, and confronting the fear of death was the answer to this trial. The boy who advanced again had not a moment of hesitation. With no obstacles, he smoothly reached the black sphere, and by destroying it, the trial would come to an end. But things were obviously not that simple. The artifact in his hand stuck in the sphere, unmoving. As the eel adjusted its body and prepared to strike again, the attendant behind him reminded him that his artifact had not yet been activated. To activate it, he had to make a wish to the weapon. Then, a great burst of golden light smashed the eel's massive body against the wall. At the same time, a beautiful woman appeared before Bam, leaving Yuri, who was behind her, stunned. She had tried countless times to activate the weapon, but had failed each time. Yet this young man succeeded on his first attempt. Could it be because this guy likes men? Bam, empowered by the artifact, easily destroyed the black sphere. Subsequently, the two embraced, surrounded by a burst of black light, leaving only the weapon behind. Yuri and the attendant were left dumbfounded. When Bam opened his eyes again, they were on a plane. If a crocodile were insulted, how would it react? The crocodile, who said his name was Rak, responded. Agnes found this too amusing. The crocodile expressed a desire to challenge Bam one-on-one. Agnes, disappointed, felt that the crocodile was also dominated, a fool who followed others' instructions. Hearing this, the crocodile became angry and shot back. Agnes jumped to avoid the attack. Afterwards, Agnes accidentally discovered that Bam's knife bore the Jihad symbol, so he ambushed Rak, tripping him to the ground, and then ran off with Bam. Rak, standing up enraged, chased after them in the distance. However, the two hid behind the multi-eyes tribe. Agnes asked Bam where he got the knife from. Such a weapon is only bestowed to Jihad princesses, and as a man, Bam shouldn't possess it. Unable to reveal the truth, fearing trouble for Yohanri, Bam made up an excuse. Agnes thought Bam was somewhat special and decided to accompany him. After a while, there were still over 200 people remaining inside the tower. The two hid beside a mountain. Bam, distressed by the deaths of so many, was asked by Agnes if he had never killed anyone. Bam explained that he had no memories from before and only remembered waking up underground. He had tried desperately to break through the surface but accidentally fell down, and then the surface was broken by Rachel. Bam cried out in excitement. Rachel was his lifesaver and had been with him for a long time. But Rachel wanted to see the stars, which were at the top of the Tower of God, so she entered the tower to climb it. Bam came here to meet Rachel. Agnes finally understood that Bam's rule was Rachel. He shook hands with Bam again, this time to become companions. When Agnes heard the test rules, he made a decision not to waste energy during the time, but to find companions from the remaining 200 people. Agnes thought Bam had the value of becoming a companion. A man who could even interest a jihad princess would surely be an asset to act together. At that moment, Rock jumped down, swinging a gun at them, but stopped at the last moment because a voice announced the end of the first phase of the test. Only 200 people were left, and those who fought beyond the time would lose their qualification. Everyone now had 5 minutes to find 2 companions. They would qualify if they touched each other when the countdown ended. Agnes proposed to Rack to become companions, but Rack turned and chased them with a gun instead. Agnes asked Rack to reconsider, but Rack said he wouldn't become companions with his prey. Agnes decided to stop and planned to kill Rack within a minute, then find other companions. Suddenly, Bam stepped forward to intervene, suggesting that if they wanted to fight, they should come at him, but he threw away his black knife. Rack was confused and urged Bam to pick up the weapon, not wanting to attack an unarmed person. Agnes realized that Bam was trying to buy time. Agnes once again tried to persuade Rack, but Rack knocked him away with a single blow. With only 10 seconds left, Agnes had no choice but to rush forward and embrace him. With only 5 seconds remaining, Bam hurriedly ran forward. At the end of the test, the 3 of them managed to touch Rack, and they proceeded to the waiting area. Rack had been bribed by Agnes's chocolate. When test administrator Lero Rowe appeared, the entire room fell silent, his presence immediately commanding the area. Agnes explained to him that all test administrators had climbed to the top of the tower, the place where King Jihad resided. At this moment, Lero Rowe felt there were too many qualifiers and released a massive amount of Shinsu, pushing everyone back and creating a water wall in the middle. Lero Rowe explained the rules. Shinsu is the power used for fighting within the tower. There are no limits to Shinsu, but its concentration varies. Teams that could withstand a high concentration of Shinsu and pass through the wall would qualify. If even one member of a team failed, the entire team would be disqualified. However, Bam was not repelled by the Shinsu. He stated he would just stay on the other side. Lero Rowe interrupted Bam, suggesting there might have been a mistake, but that luck was also a part of what was needed in the Tower of God. He declared Bam had already qualified, thinking to himself that a monster had arrived. To pass the time, Lero Rowe and Bam made a bet on who would be the first to pass through the wall. The loser would have to answer a question. Both chose the same girl, who successfully passed through the wall, resulting in a tie. Bam asked if Lero Rowe had seen a blonde girl with freckles, and what irregulars were. Lero Rowe said he had not seen such a girl. Irregulars are those who are outside the laws of the tower. The Tower of God is divided into 3 areas: the residential outer tower, the inner tower, which only selected personnel may climb, and the middle area, which connects the inner and outer towers. Only a very few are chosen by the administrators to qualify for entry into the inner tower. Bam was such an irregular, coming from outside the tower. At that moment, Rack and Agnes also passed through the wall, though Agnes's bag got stuck for a moment. He pulled hard and still made it through. Seeing the two approach, Lero Rowe stood up and cautioned Bam not to get too close to Agnes, then left. After a while, they arrived at the 3rd test venue. Bam couldn't help but take another look at Agnes. The girl never liked to consider others' feelings in a fight because she had absolute confidence in her strength. This time was no different. She felt her opponents were too weak, wanting to fight 3 at once. However, her opponents thought she was being too arrogant. As they picked up their weapons to confront her, They hadn't even approached her when she pushed one away with a slap, flinging him 2.5 meters. The team leader wanted to avenge him, but the girl didn't give him the chance. Before he could react, her whip had harshly struck his face. The 2 contestants were ruthlessly beaten, their weapons even drawing the attention of the audience. After defeating the 2 contestants, she felt no challenge at all, even feeling sleepy, completely ignoring the last opponent. The punch that came towards her wasn't even ticklish. With a backhand kick, she nearly kicked him out of the arena. With just a jump, she arrived between the thrones, and then with a swing of her whip, she even created a tornado at the scene, blowing away those with lesser strength. And naturally, the crown was successfully obtained by the girl. Her less capable teammates thought that one of them should keep the crown, and then the 2 with stronger combat abilities should protect her. Unexpectedly, she directly put it on herself. Once the crown is worn, it cannot be removed until the end of the game. If they were to encounter a team with strong abilities, they would likely have to fight 2 against 3. However, the proud girl didn't see it that way. She believed that with her strength, it was impossible for anyone to take the crown from her, completely unaware of the grueling battle royale they were about to face. Then, after a brief rest period, 2 more teams joined this crown game, and the scene immediately turned into a battle of many against few. The first to attack were the swordsmen from the opposing side, but facing the charge of 2, Hats repelled them with a single sword strike. The birdman thought to let his subordinates hold Hats down while he attacked from the air, but unexpectedly, their brief encounter nearly destroyed his weapon, and Hats's previously thrown weapon also blocked the birdman in the air. Both sides were thus stuck in a stalemate again. This man was definitely one who pushed rationality to its limits. Despite appearing to handle everything with ease, it was all an act, as he was very aware of his current predicament. Facing the enemy's pincer attack and the third enemy, who had yet to make a move, he was fully aware of what he should do. Unfortunately, his strength was only a 5, and this slight flaw was just what the enemy needed to exploit. A woman with a knife swiftly approached him, and although her strike did not hit, it succeeded in making the man lose his balance. He was then restrained by the people behind him, and the woman prepared to deliver the final blow. Seeing the situation was hopeless, all he could do was silently close his eyes. But the woman's knife did not come as expected, because her powerful teammate came to support her. After all, had he not arrived, they would have been one person short. The woman who was repelled was very confused. She turned to find that the 3 people restraining Hats had already fainted. As the scene fell into a stalemate once more, everyone's gaze naturally turned towards the man who had just woken up. The man gathered energy in the palm of his hand, and the next second, a fierce blast of Shinsu shot towards the throne where Anak was guarding the crown, immediately switching to combat mode. As the attack came towards the still unsteady Anak, her teammate also tried to help, but they didn't expect the presence of a wave controller who made it impossible for them to approach the throne. Anak, dodging the attack, landed back on top of the throne, and it seemed the situation had reversed again. The wave controller still tried to persuade Anak to hand over the crown honestly because his attack could cover the entire area, while she could not leave the throne. These words directly angered Anak. In an instant, the green April she held transformed just like something out of a straw hat wearer's arsenal. Because of the wave controller, the advantage of long-range attacks was completely lost. Meanwhile, the Black March held by another leaf, influenced by the now unleashed green April, also became restless and even difficult to suppress. The resonance between the 2 weapons even affected the still fighting green April. Seeing the easing offensive, the woman picked up the man and fled. If they didn't surrender then, their lives were likely at stake. Here, for just a bonus level, losing lives was truly not worth it. But Anak, already heated up, was clearly not so easily persuaded to stop. She blatantly ignored the rules of the game, smashing through the door of the restroom and confronted Bam face to face. She questioned him on why he possessed the Black March, a weapon bestowed only to the princesses of the tower by its king, and yet here it was, held by a man. Clearly, Bam was unworthy. Men always strike a cool pose when they get serious, particularly with his magical backpack. Just like the crown in his hand, if he stuffed the crown into his backpack in less than 2.5 seconds, it could produce an infinite number of replicas. His opponents were unaware of his backpack's capabilities. As soon as he threw the crown to the ground, it sparked a fierce scramble among many, a scene reminiscent of the 8 immortals crossing the sea, each displaying their own magical powers. After watching the tussle and growing bored, the man stopped pretending and took out the real crown, placing it before everyone. Even more audaciously, he mocked everyone present, naturally inciting anger among them. Yet facing many enemies, the man remained unflustered, all thanks to his bodyguard. They were both partners in a hunter-prey duo. The crocodile's proud ego did not want anyone else targeting his prey. With just a simple, unadorned javelin throw, he knocked out everyone on the field and thus secured the 3rd round simply. But this was the crown game, and the victor upon the throne had no time to breathe easily, as the 4th round began immediately. When Agnes tied his hair into a ponytail, it meant he was getting serious. There were 3 teams in total for this challenge, and strategically, it seemed optimal for the 3 teams to join forces and first eliminate the person on the throne. Indeed, one team suggested this, and everyone seemed to agree. However, just as they lowered their guard towards each other, the team that first proposed the alliance seized the moment and struck. Leara was sent flying. His teammates attacked, and chaos erupted in an instant, with those participating unaware that this game was a deadly trap. Another team did not understand why there was infighting. The foreshadowing had been laid since the very first test. Agnes thought the rule of starting with 400 people and narrowing down to 200 through a battle royale was absurd. So, from the very beginning, he was on the plains, seeking out those who were injured and unable to proceed to the next test, striking a deal with them. As long as he tied his headband into a ponytail, they would come out to assist him. In return, he would lead the 3 through the previous tests, his trump card. But now, there was no need to hold back as the final battle was brutal, and they needed to conserve their strength. Soon, 2 of the 3 teams were defeated by Agnes's teammates, and the 4th test ended as scheduled. In fact, from the beginning of this final test, that person had been prepared to eliminate all contestants outside his team. Initially, the team that held the crown, led by the crocodile, was ready for a tough battle of 3 against 4. However, unexpectedly, a figure dressed in black began to target the other contestants, one team even being reduced in number before they could react. The multi-eyed giant who managed to grasp the situation thought of retaliating, but the agility of the person in black was too much. The last one thought of escaping the competition arena, but by then, it was already too late to run. She soon shifted her gaze to another team, but this team was clearly braver than the trio. Although the outcome was no different than the previous teams, after dealing with these weaklings, the woman in black turned her attention to Rak. The 2 exchanged a mere glance and immediately grappled with each other. The huge crocodile, holding a javelin, was not much slower than her, and the girl, after barely blocking 1 strike from the crocodile, made a decision. She decisively gave up on entangling further with the crocodile and turned to charge towards Bam on the throne. Fortunately, Endorsi, who had come from another testing area, was uninterested in the outcome of the match. She only wanted to fight others. After a brief exchange, it was clear that Endorsi was the stronger combatant. Meanwhile, the remaining contestants took this opportunity to target Agnes and Rak, who were guarding nearby. At this time, the person next to Bam kept muttering something. This voice belonged to Rachel. But just as Bam took a step forward to confirm the answer in his heart, a huge figure already stood blocking their way. At this moment, the princess and the woman in black were fiercely fighting. But unlike the woman in black, every move of the princess seemed effortless. Agnes also dealt with the enemy before him, as the time for the match was running out. The woman in black, eager to break free from the princess, intensified her attacks even more. But for the princess, this level of fighting was far from challenging. However, at that moment, an unexpected opportunity arose. The princess, underestimating her opponent, exposed a flaw in her high heels. The woman in black struck directly at her heel, but at that moment, her shoe broke, causing her to fall to the ground. Seeing this, the woman in black, without looking back, rushed towards the throne. This directly led to a massive iron rod striking her head-on. Blood flowed instantly, and with a blurred consciousness, he still thought about the girl's safety. At this moment, he did not know the immense power contained within him, As he fainted, his body transformed into a beam of golden light, bursting forth, soaring into the sky. The powerful aura made it impossible for anyone nearby to approach. The examiner silently analyzed everything from behind. After all the energy was released, the woman responsible, also injured by the aftermath, lost half her vision. At this moment, Bam had lost control. He staggered to his feet, ready to deliver the final blow to the culprit. In an instant, everyone was frozen. The woman from the weapon appeared again. She kissed Bam, and when time resumed, Bam had already fainted. And so this crown game ended with no victors. Afterward, the two examiners reviewed Bam's strange phenomenon, for it was not the usual appearance of Shinsu. If anything, Bam seemed more like Shinsu itself. Little did they know that Bam himself was still lying in bed, 3 days since he fainted. If he does not wake up soon, they might lose their eligibility for the competition. Just as everyone was at a loss, a knock on the door interrupted their thoughts. The visitor was Rachel, the very person Bam had been longing for, and her visit was not without purpose. She wanted to ask Agnes for a favor, to keep her identity a secret, as she did not wish to recognize Bam at this time. If the two of us climb the tower together, we will only become burdens to each other. After saying this, she prepared to leave. However, Agnes, having experienced betrayal, understood very well. Despite Rachel's lofty words, he knew that her refusal to acknowledge Bam was due to her selfishness. But now, Bam was his partner, and if lying to Bam could protect him, then he was willing to maintain that lie for a lifetime. On the other hand, Anak faced his own troubles, related to the newly acquired Black March. This artifact was problematic because it refused to speak to women, though the reason was unclear. That's why Anak specifically brought the weapon to Shibisu. Although he was not knowledgeable about artifacts, Shibisu still wanted to try. Unexpectedly, before he could even touch the weapon, he was struck by a black current. It turned out that this weapon only spoke to handsome men. Shibisu didn't understand why Anak would still want the Black March, but these were minor episodes. Finally, after being unconscious for 5 days, Bam successfully woke up. The first thing he wanted to do was inquire about Rachel, but before he could ask, Agnes quickly changed the subject. After all, the immediate priority was to participate in the 4th test. Fortunately, Ye's luck was better. His test would not start until tomorrow. Every time men participate in a test, they bring different surprises, and this time was no exception. While others would seal contracts in their sleep, he not only spent half an hour, but also directly, in his subconscious, formed a lock-like contract with an ancient super beast. But not all contestants were the same. This test was called the position selection, because to continue climbing the tower, a team with clear roles was necessary. The corresponding professions determined everyone's positions in battle. The basic professions were 5. Naksigan are the core fighters in close combat with the enemy. Changjigi are responsible for long-range suppression and sniping at enemies. Deung Dejigi collect combat data and act as commanders who convey battle information. Tumsek guns scout the enemy's movements at the front lines, thereby supporting the logistics of the Naksigun. The last one is Padojabi, who manipulate Shinsu to assist in battle and suppress the enemy, dominating the entire battlefield. Bam is a Padojabi. Currently, he is participating in a contract that Padojabi must forge. The method for the test to forge the contract is simple. Just summon the pouch, then close your eyes and forge a contract with the administrator of the tier. The process varies from person to person. For instance, Loro in the back just slept, and the contract was already completed. When it came to Bam, it was not as effortless as it was for Loro. In this dark space, he was told that this was not a contract for him, but a shackle. By the time he woke up, he was gasping for breath. Everyone had completed their contracts. Although he knew forging a contract would consume physical strength, he didn't expect the cost to be so immense. The considerate examiner even specially gave them a night off to rest. During his rest, he also heard about the testing rules for Changjigi. Simply hitting the bullseye in the sky would qualify them unconditionally. Although it sounded simple, passing was not so easy, because even the distance to the target itself was hard to see with the naked eye. The crocodile concentrated on aiming for a long time, but was not as decisive as the participant behind him. With just one strike, he easily hit the bullseye, which directly sparked Rack's damn competitive spirit. During mealtime, Endorsi looked at those who were once her enemies, now sitting together eating. She was somewhat shocked by this. Despite being enemies, they seemed to be in good spirits. Nonetheless, she decided to join them. When she sat down, they explained the reason for their gathering. The task for the searchers was to make friends, specifically to make 9 friends within a week. They had run through all the contestants' rest areas because their low EQ meant they hadn't made any friends, and they had almost made many enemies. Now, they wanted Endorsi to become their friend as well. However, because they did not know her true identity or the strict rules of her household, it was naturally impossible for them to become friends. Moreover, she herself did not believe in pure friendship between men and women. Although they were both princesses, they were always at odds whenever they met, and they even came to blows in the subsequent test. The rules of this test were simple. Just kick the opponent off until only 8 remained. Many contestants, intimidated by the height of the field, hesitated to make a move. For the 2 princesses, this was a natural hunting ground. Unexpectedly, Anak, also a princess, launched an attack on the other princess. Endorsi successfully blocked Anak's attack, and gaining the upper hand, did not forget to taunt Anak, thinking that without her weapon, Anak was no match for her. Both were stubborn, and up above, a participant of the Deungdejigi profession was taking their test, which involved skillfully controlling strange screens in front of them. This posed no difficulty for Agnes, who had even started using these screens to review the progress and detailed logs of his teammates and enemies. Rack's abilities were outstanding, while Bam and Rachel's information was ordinary, and in some areas, surprisingly scant. However, when Agnes checked Anak's log, he was stunned to see that Anak had already successfully reached the top and become a high ranker and Princess of the Tower, awarded the Green April artifact. This was very strange. Why was such a powerful person who had already passed the test still here, fighting back and forth with these contestants who seemed like a mixed bag? Moreover, the information stated that Anak had already died. As Agnes pondered this, the 2 on the square had unwittingly reduced the number to just 9 while running and chasing. Just 1 more needed to be eliminated for all the remaining contestants to qualify. The next second, Anak launched an attack, enhancing her body with Shinsu, but her attack was still blocked by Endorsi. After a huge cloud of smoke, Endorsi seemed to understand that the person before her was not the real Anak, but Anak's child. Endorsi had been reluctant to strike her from the start, only wanting to confirm one thing: why her mother, despite becoming a princess, chose a path of unhappiness, opting for things like marrying and having children, which are forbidden for princesses even though they could live happily and worry-free, like beautiful shoes displayed in a cabinet, beautiful yet belonging to no one. But there are always exceptions, like her mother, who chose to pass her power to the next generation, a capital offense in the tower. This is a tower that people yearn for, where danger and opportunity coexist. The girl who climbs this tower will be crowned by the king of the tower and granted the title of princess. No matter how humble her origins, once she ascends the tower, she will become an existence revered by thousands. Clearly, Anak's mother was one such person. She despised this rule and also despised the princesses who accepted this rule. At this moment, she is solely focused on eliminating the princess before her. Endorsi does not understand why Anak is angry. She keeps saying that it was her mother who crossed the line, even though in this tower, that is considered a grave crime. But the current Anak clearly does not want to hear this, and successfully destroys Endorsi's high heels. Just as the girl is about to fall, Anak, having let down her guard, is caught by the foot. At this point, and the 2 plummet into the abyss of the arena. The examiner responsible for this test announced the results at the moment they both fell. Although this test includes safety measures to ensure that participants are not in life-threatening danger, those who are supposed to break a bone still cannot escape it. Despite their current predicament, neither of them is willing to yield verbally. Meanwhile, at the Padajabi testing ground, there is less tension. Participants are uniformly controlling Shinsu to attack balloons in the sky, and the strength of the contestants is evident at a glance. Round after round of shooting clearly overwhelms HOU, whose prolonged effort can no longer pop the balloons. The examiner, a sheep, also notices this and praises everyone for their progress while letting them rest. Then, Bam and Gray take the stage. Bam's exaggerated power causes the surrounding balloons to explode simultaneously, undoubtedly passing the test. This causes HOU, who just failed, to feel extremely unbalanced.